about is the IDF is showing regret. The IDF now made a statement after people in Gaza were massacred, like they do get massacred every single day. There's nothing like different. And they were massacred next to an aid point. But for some reason, and like I said, people get massacred next to aid points on a regular basis, every single day almost in Gaza. Israel deliberately targets them. But the IDF said that they wanted to target several members of the PIJ, and according to them, the missile landed like tens of meters far off that area and killed innocent civilians, and that the IDF shows regret on this incident. What's happening? Why is the IDF all of a sudden showing regret? Well, this is part of a pattern. Number one, Israel showed today another footage. Israel is releasing more footage of the Palestinian resistance targeting IDF terrorists in Gaza. And today they showed another, almost movie-like scene where a Palestinian fighter goes to a tank and lands an explosive device and flees the scene, despite the fact that there were heavy fire exchanges. Why are they publishing that? And why are they talking about all of the losses? Why are they confirming all of the losses that are happening in Gaza? What changed? They didn't become humane all of a sudden. They didn't start to care about innocent civilian lives, nor did they abide by any international law or humanitarian law. The reason is that there is a very big split between the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu, between the military leadership and the political leadership. This is evident from the constant disagreements and fights breaking out between them in cabinet meetings. But now it's because we're very close to a ceasefire. There are advanced talks, and even Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time is saying, I want to go into a 60-day ceasefire, but we need, and he's also confirming there's a prospect to end the war for the first time, by the way. But that, we want Hamas to disarm and. The army, on the other hand, they know how big the crisis is in which they're in at the moment. Therefore, they want to make sure that they go ahead with that ceasefire, and all of that pressure against the Israeli terror army stops, because they need to take a breather. They don't have the sufficient numbers, the levels of people that they need. They have problems with equipment too, and they've had many problems for a very long time, especially with the increased attacks coming from the Palestinian resistance. By the way, in the past several months, there have been massive attacks against Israel that we've been speaking about, and all of that is to be included in the considerations of the IDF and the row that they're having with Benjamin Netanyahu. That is related directly to the warning that was issued by the IDF against prolonging the war and the humanitarian zone that Benjamin Netanyahu is proposing inside of the Gaza Strip. That's also linked with the recent meeting he had with Bezalel Smotrich, trying to convince him to remain in the government even if Israel goes to a 60-day ceasefire. Now, firstly, if you're not aware of this humanitarian zone, or what Israel calls, of course, a humanitarian zone, is an area in Rafah from what is now called the Morag axis, which is approximately 4 kilometers up from the Philadelphia corridor, from the coast to the sea, next to Al-Mawasi area, which Israel says is a humanitarian area, despite the fact that they've killed thousands of people in tents in those areas. That area, Israel has a plan to make it what it calls a humanitarian zone, and send down 600,000 Palestinians from the Gaza population. They are saying that this area will be the only area that sufficient aid levels will go into, and they will be building tents and have the relevant requirements for the civilian society. Of course, there would be other points where the people will get aid if there would be a ceasefire, but they are speaking about this area here as part of a plan like the other plans that they had with their previous campaigns, the General's plan and the North Gaza plan and all of the other plans. But that is proving to be very problematic, not just on the international scene for Israel, but primarily internally. Why? The IDF believes that this will make them a de facto military ruler of Gaza, where they will be in charge of a civilian population, something that is very problematic for them. Then they know that they are unable to come up with all of the requirements to control a civilian population through the military. Israel tried military rule before, it failed miserably. The problem that they're facing with Gaza, and as confirmed by the Israeli army, is the fact that the force is completely exhausted. They don't have the sufficient numbers, and they will be facing a very hostile and a hungry society if they want to be present in that area. Netanyahu wants this plan to go ahead because this plan pacifies people like Bezalel Smotrich and the Israeli government, because a plan that comes before an Israeli attempt to expel the population into the Sinai Peninsula. That's still an Israeli plan, despite the fact that they failed many times to convince the Egyptian side or apply pressure through Western establishments against Egypt to open the borders, and the fact that they are present in the Philadelphia corridor even now. And one of the key people who wants Smotrich, Netanyahu now is facing a very big problem with him. And that problem is Smotrich isn't really believing him that much. But he had an urgent meeting with him. Netanyahu called Smotrich for a very urgent meeting to try and convince him. Why? Because Netanyahu is very keen on having a 60-day ceasefire. This is what the reports are saying in Israel. He himself said that there's a very big opportunity. And like I said, he even mentioned the fact that there could be a possibility to end the war, assuming Hamas disarms. But so far, we're talking about at least a confirmation from Benjamin Netanyahu that in essence, he accepts the 60-day ceasefire where Hamas will remain there. So Smotrich, on the other hand, is not satisfied with that report, that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have ceasefire, Hamas will be there. He's trying to convince him that this area in Gaza will continue to be built. It's not going to stop. So during the 60 days, he will be speaking with the Israeli army. And according to a report that came in the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, he told Bezalel Smotrich, this time the IDF will follow my orders. They will follow my command. Confirming that what? That they don't really follow his command in all times. And that's also very problematic for Benjamin Netanyahu. But Smotrich is seeing that, and he's having these confrontations with the Israeli army inside of the cabinet. They constantly have problems. In the meantime, Witkoff is speaking with the Qatar to end the war, and there is no real significant breakthrough yet, is simply because the Palestinian side is insisting on guarantees to end the war, and also they are not accepting the fact that Israel will have an increased presence inside of the Gaza Strip, and that it wants to increase the parameter. And clearly Israel is still insisting on having these humanitarian areas where it will dictate the aid alongside the American mercenaries inside of the Gaza Strip, and dictate what goes in and out in a concentration camp, in death trap concentration camps. Okay. What do we understand from all of this? Well, Netanyahu is hurrying, and he's trying to rush the progress to get into at least a 60-day ceasefire. He's still not there yet. There's still no break from the Israeli Knesset. The Israeli Knesset will go on a break in several weeks. In the meantime, the reports are saying that the American administration and Donald Trump himself directly are applying immense pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu. Donald Trump constantly says we might see a ceasefire might be declared tomorrow, or in a few days, sometime this week or next week. But everyone is saying that there's a lot of pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, and from his actions, clearly he's in a hurry to get something sorted. And he's trying to push his luck up until the last minute with the Palestinian negotiators so that he can actually try and extract something from them. And on the ground, we're seeing the absolute opposite. It's Israel giving the concessions rather than the Palestinian side, who's only showing leniency, not any significant concessions to do with the core principles and demands of the Palestinian people, ending the war, withdrawing from Gaza, all of the aid going in, rebuilding, people moving freely. But that's not the whole picture. You see, Benjamin Netanyahu has been facing a problem with orthodox elements in his government, and now the leader of Shas is saying, according to certain leaks in Israel, it's imminent that we're going to withdraw from the government. All of this mediation didn't work. Don't forget, Benjamin Netanyahu went to a war with Iran on the day that there was supposed to be a voting to dissolve the Israeli Knesset, and when there were reports that some of the orthodox elements inside of his government were reluctant to give him another opportunity. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Now, the leader of Shas, Derei, one of the most senior prominent figures in the orthodox elements of Netanyahu's government, is saying that we're going to have to withdraw from the government. We're going to have to take down the government. Why? Because the law for conscription that would give the Orthodox community an exemption hasn't passed, and it doesn't look like Benjamin Netanyahu wants to pass this legislation. And if if August comes and the Israeli Knesset goes on a break, you're talking about 2 months where nothing is going to happen. So not only Smotrich is feeling now like Benjamin Netanyahu is deceiving him, but the Orthodox elements are feeling like Benjamin Netanyahu is deceiving them as well. Because there are already plans to send the draft orders for at least 40 to 50,000, some reports are saying, or tens of thousands, to the Orthodox community. The Orthodox community already formed resistance groups inside of Israel to confront anyone coming from the IDF trying to force conscription on them, including, by the way, by means that are considered to be illegal. Israel's preparing for that. And he is now saying, this guy from the Orthodox movement, that it's not going to work and we're going to have to take him down. So whilst all of this talk is going on with the ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to shuffle multiple things at the same time. He's trying to reassure Smotrich that, don't worry, the ethnic cleansing plan is still there. The IDF, I know they weren't listening to me the whole time. This time they're definitely going to listen properly. They're going to establish that a humanitarian zone, and we will eventually expel the population. That's number one. Number two, well, the IDF isn't agreeing to this plan. They're outright criticizing the government. As a matter of fact, the leaks of the Palestinian resistance fighters against the Israeli soldiers and more confirmations from the Israeli media about the levels of losses could directly be linked to a requirement from the IDF and leaks from within the IDF to apply pressure on the political leadership and primarily Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a ceasefire by showing the Israeli public that it's not worth it for us to continue this genocide, and we're only losing here. We're not gaining anything against the Palestinian resistance. They're stronger than before, to show a sense of hopelessness in the Israeli community in the military campaign. Therefore, to justify more pressure to reach a ceasefire, applying more pressure on Netanyahu and the elements in his government who want to continue this genocide. And thirdly, the problem that he's facing with the Israeli Orthodox movements, who are now seeing that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing nothing but deceive them, and giving time limits to when they're going to completely withdraw from the government. All of that is part of the reason, or all of these things are elements and reasons for all of these delays and Benjamin Netanyahu's considerations before confirming anything to do with the ceasefire. Add to that a looming threat now coming from Iran to go into a war with him so long as this continues, or even if he reaches a ceasefire with Gaza at some point. But that threat will add more pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a ceasefire that is still going ahead, but that hasn't been concluded so far.